Good morning, everybody. Tariq is in the chat, as is Mags. So is Danny, and there are a lot of other people in the chat as well. Good morning. I should probably turn my camera on. Good morning to Mona. Mona Jani, I hope you're well. Fire away with the questions. We also have Mozamil in chat. I hope you are also well. Adrian Bieber is here. Nia is here. There's a lot of people in chat. I hope you're all doing incredibly well. A quick one before we begin, and this is important. Ask a question in chat, and if I choose the question at the end of the stream, I will be giving people $5 of Syrup token, which is a token of Maple Finance. So all you have to do between now and probably an hour's time is ask me a question. All you've got to do in chat. Now, we already have one because Danny is a dab hand at this. Danny has asked me asked me a question on X. I've got his question. Tariq, ask a question. Whoever else is there. Hidden Agendas is in chat. Ask a question. Mags has already asked a question. That's 2 questions already. Everybody now knows how this works. Now, it's easy for you to win. All you've got to do is think of a question to do with Maple Finance as I'm going through the project and ask me a question about it. Then at the end, what I did last time was I picked, I think, 1 winner. What I'm going to do this time, I'm going to pick 2 winners. So 2 people are probably going to win about $5 each worth of syrup. So ask away. It doesn't take very long to do that. And we will pick some winners at the end. Also, for those of you watching on Binance, we have a Binance chat room now. So for those of you on YouTube as well, we have a Binance chat room. And what we're likely to do is start to pick random winners from that chat room every week to basically give you prizes. That's what we're planning to do. Lover and Hanyai and whatever... I can't pronounce that name. MVRV ratio. Yeah, we're not going to get to that right now. But ask questions on Binance as well as YouTube, and we will pick a winner. Now, what we're going to go through today is we're going to go through Maple Finance. We're going to give you a brief overview of who they are. Remember, we've only got an hour. We're going to go through their website. We're going to go through their X account. We're going to go through the June analytics. We're going to go through their stablecoin growth on DeFi Llama. We're going to have a look at their token. We're also going to have a look at the update from the first half of March. Now, this is why we do these streams. There's so much content coming out from Maple Finance. We simply can't make videos. We'd become a Maple Finance YouTube channel and Binance channel if we did that. So what I do is I compile everything over a 2-week period and go through it with you. That's what we do. So this stream, which is the 14th of March, there will be another stream on the 28th of March where we go through the next 2 weeks of updates. And I never thought we'd get to this stage with Maple Finance. As I've said many, many times, I didn't think we'd get to the stage where they had 5 or 6 announcements a week. I thought 1 a week, 2 or 3 a month, absolutely fine. Also, before we begin, a big hope you are well to Tariq, who is currently in a war zone. I'm not going to say where he is, but he is in a war zone. And I like to see him in chat because it means that he has come to no harm. So I do think about Tariq a lot. We don't have many people from that area or that neck of the woods, and I'm not going to say what country he's from, I said, but I hope he is well, and I hope he stays well. Let's just put it at that. Now then, we are going to start the stream, and we're going to start it with a brief review of Maple Finance. Again, there are people in chat that have seen these streams 5 or 6 times. I don't want to keep going over the same thing every single time we stream. So what we're going to do is streamline this entire process into about 10 minutes, which means if you are here for the upteenth time, as we say in the UK, go and make a coffee. Go and make a brew right now. And if you've never heard of Maple Finance, so Mozamil, if you've never heard of Maple Finance or anybody else over there on Binance, I'm going to very quickly go through who they are. Maple Finance are the largest on-chain asset manager in the world. Okay, they're the largest. They currently have $4.22 billion of assets under management. That's gone up an awful lot because it was 3.9 last time I looked, which was only a couple of days ago. They have a flagship product. That flagship product is available on Binance on Binance, which is one of the reasons we can cover it over on Binance. And that product is a liquid yielding dollar. Now, that is not a stable coin. It is a dollar asset that grows in value over time. Currently, it's 4.3%. It has been 5.1. It has been 4.8. That APY changes over time. The further we go through the bear market, the more likely that's to go down to maybe 3.8, 3.7%. The more we go through the next bull run, that's likely to run up to 5.5%. It's market dynamics. Okay, simple as that. Now, this is a token where, let's say, for example, Mozamil buys $100 of this today. In 365 days' time, Mozamil will have $104.30. That's just how it works. Tariq goes and buys $1,000 of this of Syrup USDT today. On March the 14th, 2027, that's going to be $1,043. That is roughly how it works. You don't need to stake it. You don't need to lock it in earn. It sits in your account, just naturally earning that rate. Now, there are other platforms, which we can't really talk about because we're on Binance as well, such as Camino Finance, where you can loop some of these strategies and you can earn 8, 10, 12% by pairing this with USDC or PayPal USDC, but we're not here to talk about that. This is their product. Now, the product is backed by institutional assets. They are over-collateralized loans. What that means is, if you have $150 million worth of Bitcoin, and you don't want to sell that Bitcoin because that's part of your strategic reserve, it's part of your treasury, you don't want to sell the Bitcoin. Keep the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin's going to go up in value. But what you can do is you can go to Maple Finance, for example, and you can say, okay, I want a $100 million loan, and I'm going to put up $150 million of Bitcoin. Maple Finance will do their KYC, do their AML, and give you the approval, more than likely, on that. Maple Finance then takes that $150 million worth of Bitcoin, and then they charge you interest. And that interest gets paid out to you for you holding Syrup USDC or Syrup USDT. Now, that is the long and short of it. That's how they operate. And these loans are over collateralized. That means the assets put down by these institutions have to be worth a lot more than the loan they take out. So if you have a house that's worth $100,000 and you want to remortgage it, the bank isn't going to give you $150,000 for your house because your house is only worth $100,000. So what you're likely to do is get a loan of maybe $60,000 or $70,000. That's how this works in crypto as well. The Bitcoin that they deposit or the Bitcoin they use as collateral has to be worth more than the loan. That's it. Simple as that. Now, they're not small. 26.56 billion total assets, so loans so far, 100 borrowers, 400 loans issued. All of these numbers will have changed a lot since then. They need to probably update this. And the one thing to bear in mind about all of this is great in a bull run. It's fantastic in a bull run. Everyone makes money. Everybody's Warren Buffett. Everybody's Michael Saylor. Everybody's Tom Lee. But what happens when it hits the fan? What happens when Bitcoin drops 60%? What happens when we have a liberation day? What happens when there is strikes, military strikes around the world? The price of Bitcoin plummets. The price of those assets plummet. And this is why I talk so much about this, because it's all well and good sitting here talking about projects when they're doing really well. Of course, everybody's going to love that. But when the market is doing badly, good morning, Leo. Sorry, I didn't see you there. When the market's doing badly, that's when you stress test the likes of Maple Finance. Now, we've covered this again before. They've had no liquidations so far in the last 18 months. That covers about 4 different crashes. October the 10th, Liberation Day, which was last April, the February crash. You can pick any crash you want in the last 18 months, and Maple Finance have managed to successfully keep all of their partners safe and sound. There are, of course, margin calls. So when the value of the Bitcoin on the books falls, Maple Finance will call them and say, listen, your $100 million loan is only now got $120 million worth of assets. Can you send us another $20 or $30 million worth of collateral? Absolutely no problem. Sends that over. That tops up the collateral. Or they close the loan back, which means the loan gets repaid and the assets get released to the partner. That's it. That's how it works. It's the easiest thing in the world. I can't really warrant spending more time talking about that because they've been stress tested so much over the last 18 months. Whereas maybe a year and a half ago, they hadn't proven the stress. Now they have. And that gives me a lot more confidence when we talk about Maple Finance, because I can point to several occasions where they have really been up against it. Not up against it in terms of problems, but up against it in terms of the market crashing, dealing with their partners, making sure that everything they do, all the processes they follow, all the contact information, everything they do is watertight. That is what is important. Now then, we're going to move on very, very quickly because I don't want to spend too long talking about old stuff. I'm just going to I'm trying to keep an eye on chat. Leo has asked a question. Let me go and copy that question before we begin. This is June, by the way, and this is the Maple Finance page on June. This is basically up-to-date real-time information on Maple Finance. Remember, they're an on-chain asset manager, so all of their assets are on-chain, which means we can look at them. Now, the question by Leo, I am not going to read out. I'm going to put Leo's question into the list. So now we have 3. Let me see if we've got any others very quickly over here. BR Waz, what do you think about XRP coin? This is a Maple Finance stream. So basically ask questions about Maple Finance and we will try and answer them. Tariq, and why is too many stable coins in Maple Finance more than Syrup USDT? That's a very good question. Hello, Reese. I hope you're doing well. Right, Tariq has asked a question. Let me stick that in there. I shouldn't have read Tariq's question out, should I? Right, that's 4 questions so far. So Reese, Lover, Hanley, a few others, if you want to ask questions in chat, ask, and if I read your question out at the end, you will win $5 worth of Syrup token. So all you got to do is ask a question in chat. If you ask a question that I read out, I will give you Syrup tokens. And the way things are going, I'm more than likely going to give probably a couple of prizes out. 4 questions so far, 4 very good questions. I'll see how many get added by the end. Right, let's get back to where we're talking about, which is this. So, again, we don't want to spend too long talking about this. We want to get into the meat and bones of what they've been doing over the last 2 weeks. But this is a panel that shows you the health of Maple Finance. How well have they been doing? What have they been up to? How are their assets under management looking? All of those kind of things. And you will see, as I've said on the last 2 or 3 streams, the assets under management have done exactly what I said, which is they are going to grow exponentially until the end of the bull run, and then they will plateau. And they are not plateauing because their business isn't expanding. They're plateauing because a lot of the assets under management are based on the collateral that's held from their clients. So if Bitcoin falls 50%, as it did, then their assets under management also fall considerably. Now, no, they don't fall 50%, but they will fall by a large amount. So if we look at the peak, which was probably October the 28th, you're looking at $5 billion of assets under management. Then, as the market crashed, we saw the first dip down here. That brought them down to 4.5 billion. And then if we follow this down here, that came to $3.7 billion assets under management. So as the value of the Bitcoin has fallen, so has the assets under management. But it hasn't fallen. This is what I said on the last stream as well. If you look at $5 billion at $126,000 Bitcoin, we're now at $4.2 billion at a $70,000 Bitcoin. So the assets under management have fallen by roughly, it's not quite 20%, maybe 18%, whereas Bitcoin is down now about 45%. So if we did this entire thing and valued it in Bitcoin, probably this chart would still be going up and to the right, but it's not. And what we have to take away from this is they're outperforming, which means they're growing into a market that's declined in value. So what I mean by that is 1,000 Bitcoin at $126,000 is valuation-wise a lot more than, say, 1,400 Bitcoin at $63,000 because the values are not the same. We talk about this all the time with TVL. I don't believe that TVL, based on dollar values, is the right metric. It's BS. It's absolutely not the right metric. If you look at Ethereum has 40 million Ethereum staked. If you base it off the number of Ethereum staked, then you are looking at a fair comparison. So if that 40 million staked goes to 30 million staked, you can see that people are unstaking Ethereum more than likely to sell. With Maple Finance, because it's valued in dollars, we can't see the underlying asset growth. We can't see that it's gone from 1,000 Bitcoin to 1,500 Bitcoin to 2,000 Bitcoin or whatever it might be, because it's based on the dollar value. And that, I think, is a metric that we don't have, that we need to have. I think that's a better metric to understand Maple Finance. But either way, $4.2 billion of assets under management. They're still the largest in the world. And again, these are rookie numbers. I'm going to keep saying this for a long time. These are rookie numbers. Maple Finance is going to get to the point of having, probably within this year, probably they will break $10 billion of assets under management. Still rookie numbers. $100 billion, $250 billion is probably more likely when we start looking at how big a project Maple Finance is going to be. Private credit, private finance, institutional lending and borrowing is probably one of the biggest markets in TradFi, but it's one of the markets that exists kind of outside of stocks and shares. It's like a separate market, separate niche, or niche, as the Americans would call it. And 4.2 billion is really not big enough. It's not big enough. And I'm not saying that to slight Maple Finance. What I'm saying is it's so massively early for Maple Finance. They're the market leader in an expanding industry that has got nowhere near its potential. If you look at the amount of real-world assets that have come on chain, you're talking in the tens of billions. We need to be talking in the hundreds of billions. So let's not fool ourselves and think this is the end of the journey for Maple Finance or Ondo or any of these other businesses that are in the real-world asset space. They're only just beginning. Okay, this is the entree. So 4.2 billion, it's a really good number. It gives them really good revenue at this moment in time, but it's rookie numbers. It's absolutely rookie numbers. And I hope you understand where I'm coming from when I say that. It's a drop in the ocean to the potential of where Maple Finance will be. That's what I'm pointing out. Now, if you look at interest paid, this is what's paid out to you guys. So if you're holding Syrup USDT and Syrup USDC, $144 million has been paid out in interest. Big numbers. They've also broken $26 billion in total loan originations. That's $50 billion this year. probably break 100 billion next year. These are going to be bigger numbers than they are now. That's the way I would look at that. Now, let me just make sure. There we go. Everything is on screen. Right. So the one thing I want to draw your attention to now, if I need to make it big enough to fit on the screen, and then you can see it. It's just going off the edge of the screen. Hang on 1 second. There we go. That's about right now. There we go. Perfect. Now, this is the only other thing that you should care about. If you look at any project, whether it be Maple Finance or anybody else, the two numbers that matter in a business, revenue is absolutely vitally important, and profit. Revenue and profit. Everything else, pretty much irrelevant. You can have a business like Netflix that can do $100 billion a year in revenue, and it can make $1 million a year in profit. It doesn't make you any money, does it? It's great having that revenue, but without profit, it doesn't get you anywhere. Now, the way I see these numbers down here, I see this number as profit. Now, I know it says revenue, but the majority of the revenue is getting paid out to you. That $144 million is what you're getting for holding Syrup USDC and Syrup USDC. This table is all that matters, in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion. It's not anybody else's opinion. I am not an official Maple Finance employee or anything like that, so I can say what I like. Now, what matters to me is we can look at March this year, and they are at $778,000 in revenue, which is more than every other month up until May last year, where they broke $1 million. When they broke $1 million, they spent around about 4 or 5 months between $1 million and $2 million, and then they broke $2 million, and they haven't looked back. Now, February is down. There are 3 less days in February, so you could probably add another 10% onto that, and that puts them probably up at about $2.4 million, which is probably on a par with, I would say, October last year and maybe December. Okay, so solid performance. This is what matters. I'm expecting March to come in at somewhere around about $2 million, $1.8 million in revenue. Now, from there, 25% goes into buying back the Syrup token. So if they do $2 million in a month, 500,000 will go to buy back the token. We're going to cover that a little bit later on anyway. That's what that matters about. But that screen, that panel there, protocol revenue, and the AUM, they're the two things that matter. Everything else is nice to understand and nice to follow, but they're the two things that matter. Two really simple to follow graphs. If anybody ever wants to look at those graphs, absolutely feel free. Now then, we're going to move on a little bit. Again, I don't want to overrun too much. I understand this is a Saturday morning. We've got some questions in chat. You're sending them. Reese, okay, let me put Mazamil's message into the list, and then we will carry on. There we go. Right. So this is DeFi Llama. Again, third-party website, nothing to do with Maple Finance. This is a review of the yield rankings by dollar yielding assets. This is one that I bring up. Now, what I want to draw your attention to here is out of the top 5 or 6, you will see that Maple Finance makes up 2 of them, number 3 and number 4. If you combine the 2 TVLs, you get to around about $5.1 billion, which makes them the second largest dollar yielding asset in the world, behind Sky Lending, which was, of course, MakerDAO, I think it was. So they're the second biggest in the world for their dollar yielding asset. But again, go to the column to the right and you'll see the APY. USDS is paying 3.75, USDE is paying 3.43. But if you look at the APY and the base APY of Syrup, you will see it's paying 4.08 and 4.45. So the second largest in the world, but paying the highest amount. is paying 4.05, but again, nothing comes close to Maple Finance. So they're paying the biggest yield. They're the second biggest dollar yielding asset. I think everything is happy. Actually, one thing that I have forgotten to do, if you give me 1 second, is I have forgotten to pin the syrup token. There we go. Pin the syrup token to the shield. All right. Muzamil has actually asked 2 questions. Give me 1 second. Right, there we go. Okay, so we have questions building up nicely. Everybody is happy. 11:26. We're still on time. Where are we? Right. So that's all I wanted to show you from this, which is basically Maple Finance are not a small player. They're a very, very big player in this market. And we've covered this on many streams before when we've talked about the size of Maple Finance. We've talked about the fact that it might not be a household name, Maple Finance, but Syrup USDC and Syrup USDT are household names in crypto. Now, this is the first one. We're going to do this in chronological order. So we're going to go back to the 5th of March. This was the first tweet. We've probably got questions. So a little bit more fluid and I would say dynamic than we do in the past, where we do probably about 50 minutes of chit chat and then I answer your questions. I'm going to go through all of your questions. Now, at the beginning of May, they announced that they'd hit $2.1 million in monthly revenue for 5 consecutive months. Consistent performance through periods of market uncertainty shows strength and positions Maple for further expansion. 25% of all revenue flows into the Syrup Strategic Fund, continuously strengthening the balance sheet. Now, the point of this is work out what those 5 consecutive months were. October, November, December, January, and February. October was the Bitcoin all-time high, and then we fell in November. Then we fell again in February. But Maple Finance, their revenue is staying above $2 million. So what's important about that is it's not just any 5 months in the crypto cycle. It's the 5 months where Bitcoin came from a high all the way to the low, October, November, December, January, February. That's the entire drawdown of Bitcoin from 126 to 60,000. And they stayed above $2 million in revenue. Now, whether they stay above $2 million in revenue in March or April or month, that's the kind of the baseline I have for Syrup. That's what I think they need to stay above. That gives them about $400,000 a month of buybacks. That still gives them about $1.1 million a month to pay wages, for marketing and everything else. And I think that's pretty much how I view it. So their baseline for me now used to be $500,000, then it was $1 million, now it's $1.5 million. That's my baseline. So whether they hit 2.1 or 1.8 in March or April or May is no concern to me. As long as it stays above the 1.5, I think we're good. So that's the first thing. We're not going to spend a lot of time about this. Now, this isn't really related to Maple Finance, but I'm going to include it because we did a tweet about it as well, and we quite like this kind of stuff. This was a nice little video they put together for International Women's Day, which was, I think, last Sunday. Was it last Sunday? 8th? Yeah, I think it was last Sunday. As the great NASA mathematician Katherine Johnson said about going to space, there were no textbooks, so we had to write them. To every woman involved in writing the playbook in crypto, the future of finance, and in other fields around the world, we see you. Now, I don't know many of these people other than Natalie, and I don't really know Natalie very well. She's just joined. I think she's head of marketing. But there are women involved in Maple Finance, and we talk a lot about Sid, and we talk a lot about Joe. There's Matt Callum as well, and a few other people, but there are a lot of women working in Maple Finance, and I don't think maybe they get the exposure that they should get. So I've included this because it's nice to see Maple celebrating the fact that there are women involved. And I know it's such a cliche when people say, oh, there aren't enough women in this, there aren't enough women doing that. But genuinely, in crypto, there are not enough women. You have a few influencers. You've got Crypto Wendio. You've got the other Natalie Burnell, I think she's called. You've then got the other girl that I follow that does Crypto America. You've got a few, but you don't have that many. Now then, the Syrup Strategic Fund was one of the key topics featured on the Token Holder call. We covered this 2 weeks ago. How will Maple Finance approach buybacks, and what will drive the SSF framework? Now, this is a clip, which is the one that we've already kind of covered, so we're not going to talk about the clip. But Sid and Joe were talking about the fact that the Strategic Syrup Reserve, or the Strategic Syrup Fund, is going to have a certain level of intelligence added to it. And this isn't the first time they've done this, and I've mentioned this in the last stream as well. I know WolfSwap are doing it as well. And rather than simply going out on the first of every month and buying $500,000 worth of syrup, they're building up a cash reserve. So when we have market corrections to the downside, they can buy more syrup. That's how it's going to work. So it's not a set day or a set time that they're going to do this at. And I think they've taken a leaf out of the books of all of the other companies that are starting this. So Hype is one. Jupiter is another. And what they do is they say, right, we're going to use all of our revenue or half of our revenue to buy back tokens, build that purchase up, build the stock of it up, and we're going to increase the buy pressure on this token. That's what they have tried to do. Now, the way it works is twofold. If you buy every single day, that's one method of doing it. That's what Hype do. That's what I think Asta do it as well. That's what Dupe do. That's one way of doing it. And you'll dollar cost average in, you'll catch the dips. But what they're doing is they're waiting for the big market corrections to basically buy cheaper syrup. That means they buy more syrup. And if they buy more syrup, there's less syrup for you to buy. Now, we've looked at many things over the last couple of months. The Ethereum supply on exchanges has dropped. The Bitcoin supply is the lowest now in what? Is it 4 years or 8 years is the lowest Bitcoin supply on, Bitcoin reserves on exchanges. We talked yesterday about XRP reserves on exchanges falling. Maple Finance are removing syrup from exchanges by buying them. More than likely through Binance, because that probably would be the best place to get them from for liquidity purposes. But they're buying back syrup. Now, there's a very strange mechanic going on that we're going to look at when we get to the chart, where I'm going to show you the kind of really weird dilemma that we're in with Maple Finance and syrup, which is the performance of the business is not the same as the performance of the token. And I've said this countless times. Tariq has heard me say it 100 times in chat. You can have one of the best performing crypto assets in the world, and the underlying fundamentals of that business are garbage. If they've even got underlying fundamental financials. Look at the likes of Bonk and Pepe. Look at the likes of meme coins. Look at the likes of some of these projects that come out of nowhere that everybody buys the hype into. There's going to be a TGE. There's going to be an airdrop. There's no revenue. There's no profit. And then you see a business like Chainlink, which we talked about yesterday, and Maple Finance that are sitting there making millions of dollars a month in revenue, real revenue, by the way, real profit, and their token does not reflect that. You have this position where they kind of, you're looking at the degens over here buying the monkeys and the cats and the dogs, and then you're looking over here going, but these are the projects that are going to work. These are the ones that are going to make you money. If I had to pick 5 tokens to be here in 5 years' time, I would certainly have, outside of the top 10, I would certainly have Chainlink. I would certainly have the likes of Hype and Asta, because they are very large revenue generating businesses. And I would certainly look at real world asset projects like Maple Finance, even Ondo. Ondo has fallen from grace dramatically. And at the price it was a fair value. And now it's massively undervalued. So you have this position where the real projects are getting hammered the same way as the meme culture projects are getting hammered. And that's not how the real life works. We're still in this ridiculous bubble that, in my opinion, has to pop. Now then, We're going to move on. We've got a couple more to talk about. We've got a comment from the 10th, and then we've got one from the 12th, which was only 2 days ago. Then we're going to get onto the chart, and then we're going to get onto the questions. 11:35. I've still got plenty of time to do all of this. Remember, in chat, fire away. Somebody's just mentioned there's a little bit of lag. There is a little bit of lag. I'm watching it on YouTube, and we seem to be okay. So I'm watching it here. That seems to be fine. I think it might be Binance lag. I'm not too sure. Now then, Syrup USDT just hit $50 million in inflows on the BNB chain across 4 vaults. New ecosystem, same Maple momentum. Now, we covered off a lot of this in the last stream, so I don't want to cover it too much, but this was going to happen. And if you put Syrup USDT or Syrup USDC onto any platform, they're going to be a success. And the reason is they are I would say, low to medium risk asset where you don't have it's not an algorithmic stable coin, for example. It's backed by real assets. And you are earning what I would consider to be a sustainable yield. And that's what's important. You see, we've covered USD1 on here as well from World Liberty Financial. And they were incentivizing you to hold their token, the USD1. And they were paying you at one point about 12 or 14% APY or APR. Now, that's amazing because they're trying to get the token off the ground. They're incentivizing you. I think they're currently paying you 8% over on Binance, which is still a great number. But those are not sustainable yields. They will not be paying you 8% in probably, I'd say, a year's time. And the reason is, what generates that underlying yield to pay you? If you look at a dollar-backed or a debt dollar-backed stablecoin like US Tether or US Circle, they hold US debt, which is currently about, let's say 4% for argument's sake. I think it's a little bit less. They're paying 4%. So for every $1 billion, Tether have $40 million worth of revenue. Now, if for every $1 billion they are paying you $80 billion, where does that additional $40 million come from? Maybe it comes from transaction fees and swap fees and whatever it might be. But that's not going to make up the difference. So they're incentivizing you. The natural balance for a dollar yielding asset is anywhere between, I would say, 2.5% and 3.5%. That's the natural balance. That's the natural order of things. So you can be incentivized. Yes, you should take advantage of those incentives. Absolutely. But long term, if you want to earn 4% on your stable coins for the next 3 or 4 years, consistently, you have to look at something that's backed in a different way. So American debt is going to get cheaper because Kevin Warsh is going to come in. Warsh, I think he's called. He's going to come in to replace Chairman Powell. He's going to cut interest rates. That's going to make the American debt cheaper. So maybe it drops to 3.2%. So all of the naturalized stable coins are going to cut their emissions. Syrup USDC isn't based on that. It's based on institutional lending. It's based on big companies with big Bitcoin treasuries borrowing against that asset, Bitcoin. So they don't get those loans at 2 or 3%. They might get those loans at 6%, which is still an amazing rate. So if they're getting the loans at 6% and they're paying you 4.5%, that's a sustainable yield. That's what's important. Now, the bigger Syrup gets, the more chains it can move on to. It's not a case of Syrup is trying to pick and choose. It can't be all things to all men on day one. It has to grow naturally. It went from Ethereum to Solana. It went from Solana to Arbitrum. It then went to Base. It went to Plasma. And the latest incarnation of Syrup is you would certainly look at BNB, Ethereum, Solana, amongst others. So they've done the right thing, and they've done it in the right way. They can't run before they can walk, and now they're starting to jog. This will grow over time. That 50 million that's on the BNB chain is going to be $500 million before the end of the year. Their Aave pools are going to be massive. I'm going to show you that in a second. So they have to expand naturally, and they have to expand with a certain level of risk adjustment. They can't say, right, we're going to put out $50 million onto BNB chain if they don't have the loans to provide the interest for that $50 million. They've got to do it carefully. Now, talking about that, this is the second article. This is to do with the total deposits for Syrup USDC and Syrup USDT have broken 2.5 billion. This was only 2 days ago, roughly 2 days ago. So they've broken through 2.5 billion. Again, rookie numbers, absolutely rookie numbers. And I'm going to show you why these are rookie numbers. We can go and have a look at, I'm just going to give you an example. I'm not going to show you, let's have a look. There's a very funny way that this shows stable coins, and it doesn't quite. No, I'm on the wrong category. Here we go, categories. Let's look at this one. This is the wrong one. Oh well. Let me try again. It doesn't quite show stable coins in the right way. There we go. This will do. Okay, so if we're talking about traditional stable coins, you've got Tether with 184 billion. You've got Circle with 79 billion. Then you've got Ethena with 6 billion. Now, these are, in my opinion, not necessarily the right list, because some of these stable coins are algorithmic stable coins, so I wouldn't include them in this list. But it's a very funny way that they've done it on CoinMarketCap. There's not really a lot we can do about that. But what I want to draw your attention to is this is a $312 billion asset class, stable coins. If this is going to become the future of payments, you're going to need it to be a $3 trillion asset class. If it's a $3 trillion asset class, you're going to want to earn a yield on those assets. Now, the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, all of these acts that are being passed in America are going to stop Tether and Circle and World Liberty Financial and DAI and PayPal. It's going to stop them all from paying any kind of yield. So you can't get them from a traditional stablecoin. So you're going to need the likes of the chart we showed you before on DeFi Llama. You're going to need the likes of Syrup USDC, Syrup USDT to pay you. Now, if you've got a choice of 0.05% interest on your Chase account, if you've got the choice of 0% on your Tether or Circle, or you've got the choice of 4.5% on Syrup, which stablecoin or dollar yielding asset are you going to put your money into? It's a no-brainer. So if this is going to... I can't highlight that number. Why doesn't it let me highlight that number? So if you can't earn yield on $312 billion, and that's going to go to $3 trillion, then you're not going to look at Syrup being at $2.5 billion, are you? Because the demand is so much higher. So you'd be looking at a $25, $50 billion asset, which will then pay 4%. You do the numbers on the revenue of Maple Finance at 10 times what they're doing now, and you're looking at maybe $25 to $30 million a month. You then look at that over a period of a year. You may be looking at maybe, I don't know, let's say $300 million. That gives you $75 million a year to buy their coin back with, because they spend 25%. And that is what we're going to look at now very quickly, which is the chart. So don't look at where we are today, which is still very impressive. Look at where the market is going. And the issue that I've got with the market is everybody's taken their eye off Bitcoin and everybody is now looking at stable coins. That's my issue. Right, very quickly then. We're going to have a look at this. Have I now got 2 questions from Leo? Or... Nope, I've got another question from Leo. Right, so there's another question from Leo. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go and check any more questions over here. Alicia, welcome to the chat. Meme coins are the most useless thing ever, honestly. Absolutely agree with you. Absolute waste of time, yes. What are the factors driving the price of syrup? How does it compare to the DeFi tokens? That is, Muzammil has now asked 3 questions. He's doing incredibly well. Right, so let's see how many questions we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we've got about 9 questions. I'm going to have to pick a few, aren't I? Right then. So, the syrup token. Topped here at about 65 cents in July. The all-time high for the majority of altcoins came in August of 2025. We actually had the alt season 2 months before we had the Bitcoin all-time high. So we had a mini alt season. Everything fell away. Bitcoin then moved up to 126,000 and then everything died. Now, you can see pretty clearly on here the way the syrup token is going. You can also see it is trying desperately to get above the bull market support band, which is coming down here. This is the bull market support band, okay? And it's coming down. Now, the Oracle, who is way more knowledgeable than I am, the Oracle said that the bottom for syrup would be 22 cents. And if we... What's that price there? That's 23 cents. Hang on 1 second. So the Oracle called the bottom at 22 cents. He did this back here. He said that 22 cents would be the bottom. Do you know what I said? I said, absolute nonsense. We're never going to go to 22 cents. I think 27 cents is going to be the bottom, which is the second line on here. So this is the Oracle, and this is me. Now, if you look, I didn't do a bad job of calling 27 cents. Okay? He did a better job of calling 22 cents. Now, in one of his videos that he put out, or one of his live streams that he put out about a week or 2 ago, he was talking about where Maple Finance is going to go in terms of its token. And he was saying, I know Bitcoin is going to come down. I know Bitcoin is going to come down, but syrup isn't. Syrup is going to go up. And I'm kind of like, again, saying, well, if Bitcoin goes to $50,000, everything's going to absolutely nuke to the downside. And he's like, I don't think syrup's going to come down that much further. Now, he did call his bottom, and I did call my bottom. And I think the next level we need to look for, if we're looking at prices, is there. It's about 31.5 cents. We need to break my 27 cent target, which is previous support. And the problem with previous support is it can become resistance. So we need to break 27 cents. If we do break 27 cents, we also have a little bit more confluence at the price here, which is about 31 cents. Now, I'm going to let you into a secret. I've done that 2 streams running, Mags. Okay, we'll start again, but very, very briefly. This is the target that the Oracle set. This is the target that I set. He said 22 cents. I said 27 cents. Syrup has struggled to break this downward trend line, which means it's more than likely going to have a run at the same trend line, which is the bull market support band, which is kind of coming down like this. Okay? So, the first thing we need to do is break my target, which is 27 cents, because we could come up into this and come down. So target number 1 is 27 cents. Target number 2 is to get back to 31.5 cents. That's the target. Now, thank you, Mags, by the way. Now, the next thing is the strategy that we've got with this token and where we're going to take profits. We are going to sell some syrup. We've got a lot of syrup, and we held it from around, we sold July time. So we sold around here. Okay, so we didn't get the top, but we sold around here, which was, I think, about 52, 54 cents. This is where we sold. And with that, we bought some microphones, some cameras, and we bought some equipment. And all through this period, we have been accumulating syrup. But the average price of what we've been accumulating, I think, is probably somewhere in that range there. That is the worst drawing I've ever seen anyone do on a chart. Get rid of that. So I think our average buy-in is probably about 35 cents now, because we've been buying more as it's dropped. Now, we're going to be selling some of our syrup towards the 35 to 40 cent range if we see what Bitcoin is likely to do. So we have 3 targets for Bitcoin: $74,000, $80,000, and $85,000. There are 3 targets for Bitcoin. If we go towards 80 or 85,000 for Bitcoin before we come back down, then what is likely to happen is syrup is likely to break this downward trend and probably come up towards this range here at 40 cents. At 40 cents, we are probably going to sell half of our syrup. That's it. We're going to sell at 40 cents. Now, should we go on to 50 cents and 60 cents and whatever, it doesn't matter, because we're then going to use that money to improve our stream. We're going to go, and we've already ordered the microphones, as you know, everything else. So this sell will be to then fund our channel. It's not a sell because we've lost hope in syrup. And we always make sure we tell you what we're doing. Okay? That's the most important thing to us. We haven't lost hope in syrup at all. But if we see, or if we think Bitcoin is going to do what I think Bitcoin is going to do, which Bitcoin has done this now for 3 months, 2.5 months. If we finally get that relief rally to 74 or 80 or 85, that's then going to lead into a bigger correction to the downside, maybe 50,000, maybe 45, whatever it might be. Syrup is likely to come down again. So we are going to sell around here, but then we are likely to buy probably around here. So if we can catch syrup in this range here, which is probably 35 to 40 odd cents, if we can catch syrup in here, and you can do the same thing, and then we come back down here towards 15 or 20 cents, it does make sense to maybe think about taking some profits, because we put a tweet out about this yesterday. There's no point in sitting on your bags. Well, there is a point of sitting on your Bitcoin bag, absolutely, and just stacking Bitcoin. But for your alts, if we have an idea that the market is going to have a relief rally, which is what we're seeing, and then that relief rally comes to an end, and then we're likely to go maybe 30% lower, it would make sense to find an area to take profit. So in our opinion, we're going to do 35 to 40 cents for syrup, which again is probably 50% from here, 40% move from here. If we get there, and if we're showing sign of weakness at 32 cents, 33 cents, maybe we take profits there. But we won't be selling all, and we will be looking to buy back lower. Now, you can just ignore all of everything I've just said and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to hold it. And that's absolutely fine. That's your prerogative. You can hold what you want. I'm showing you what we're going to do. And I'm also going to be selling some Ethereum as well at the same time. Now then, let us move on. I'm going to hit refresh on that screen and go back here. Now then, I've taken the chart off the screen, Mags, because we're going to get to the questions. And what I'm probably going to do is if I hit this, there we go. What I'm probably going to do is, I said I'd pick 2. I'm probably going to pick 3 questions. I'm going to pick 3 questions from this list and answer them. And then those 3 people are going to win syrup. To win the syrup, you have to be on Binance Square. You have to be on Binance. You don't have to be watching on Binance Square. You can be watching on YouTube. I'm going to pick 3 people. Those people are going to win $5 worth of syrup. And we have about 4 minutes to get that done. So I'm going to read some of these questions to myself, and then I'm going to read them out. See what we're going to... So many questions. There's actually, I think this is the most questions we've ever had on a Maple stream. Turn that way a bit. Right, a few people have asked a similar kind of question. So let me start. The first question I'm going to read out is Tariq's question, because I think it's an interesting question. Why is there more than one version of Syrup USDX? That's a very, very good question. There are 2 main tokens, Syrup USDC and Syrup USD stablecoin activity. The majority of USDT stablecoin activity is on Ethereum-related chains. The majority of Circle-related stablecoins is on Solana and a few others. So the reason there's 2 is because of the liquidity that's on the different chains. So if you look at Plasma, Plasma is a USDT chain only. So you would see USDT Syrup there. If you look at ARK, which is a Circle-related project, that's a USDC-related project. So you need both stable coins, one in USDT and one in USDC, simply because there are 2 different variations of the same thing. That is how it works. So that is the first question, which is from Tariq. That's the first one I'm going to ask out. Now then, the next one is... let me think. So many good questions. I can't really pay all 9. What's the next good question? I'm going to pick Leo's question here. Right. So, with institutional credit yields driving Maple's products, how sensitive is protocol revenue to shifts in global interest rates? I think that's an amazing question. Now, just let me hit refresh to make sure we are still live. And then I will answer the question. I think we are. I can see my head moving on the screen, so we should still be here. I'm also going to find a way to bring it up on the screen. We'll do that for the next show. There's a big area on the screen for the question. Now, how sensitive is protocol revenue to shifts in global interest rates? I don't think it's that sensitive, because private credit is a different animal to institutions, mortgages and interest rates offered by the Fed. It's a different market. So private credit has some level of sensitivity to the global interest rates. And it's not really global interest rates either. It's more American interest rates. If you look at the Japanese, for example, their rates are at 1%. If you look at America, they're now? Nearly 4%. So it's really the American credit market. If you want to borrow money, you go to America. That's basically the long and short of it. Yes, they do an awful lot in the UK. They do an awful lot in the private family offices in Europe as well. They do a lot of private credit. But on the whole, If you ask me, I say it's only a marginal effect. Where I would say the biggest driver of interest rates for private credit is simply down to competition. The reason Maple are going to be a success is because they can handle 100, 200, 300 million dollar loans. That's how they can be successful. There will come a point where they do their first $1 billion loan, and then you're really into the big boys. Now, there is competition for private credit. Of course there are. Certain institutions, such as the big private banks in America, they might only charge 4 or 5% interest, but they will only take on a sliver of institutions. So if Microsoft or Apple or Amazon, for whatever reason, wanted a loan, they might get 4 or 5% from one of the very largest private issuers, Warren Buffets of this world. Then there's a huge chunk of people that want hundreds or tens of millions of dollars that sit in the middle that maybe don't have access to that elite group of private credit institutions. And that's where Maple Finance sits at the minute. It doesn't mean they can't attract the ones from the top, but it means that there is a kind of pecking order that Maple Finance is slowly moving up. So I don't think the answer to your question is it's important. I don't think it is, but it does have an effect. Like I said, if rates in America went to 1% tomorrow, then private credit would probably fall a little bit, and you'd probably be seeing 3%, 3.5%, because you have to remember there's a risk associated with everything. That's why your mortgages are normally a lot cheaper than the loan for a car. If you go and get a loan for a car these days, I don't know what you pay, 9%, 10% for a loan for your car, because you can drive your car into a wall. It's very hard for you to drive a house into a wall. And then your insurance premium is based on where is your house. Is it likely to flood? Is it likely to fall down a hill? That kind of thing. Is it likely to be burgled and burnt down? Those kind of things. So even in insurance premiums, they do look at the house value, and mortgages look at the house value, but still you pay less for your mortgage because it's a tangible asset. So again, that would be my answer to that question. Next element, give me 1 second. So that's Leo. Let's have a little look now. So we've got two. What have we got? 9. I think we've got 9 questions. Alyssa, syrup has 3 cautions about it. Can you clarify? Can you let me know where that is on Binance? I'll go and have a look. I don't know. I've not seen that. Let me go and have a look. So if I go to Binance now, you're saying there's 3 cautions about them on this page. Is this to do with the seed tag by any chance? I can't see where those cautions are. Let me know where the cautions are, and I will go and have a look. If it's to do with the seed tag, I wouldn't worry about the seed tag. Syrup is a $300-400 million market cap token. It's not a meme coin. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But if you can let me know where that is. Under audit, where is that? I don't think I've ever seen that. If you can tag me on that, I will go and have a look, because I don't see that right now. I've got token tags. I'm looking at the chart now. I don't see anything to do with that. So I don't know where that is. Under the audit tab. Where's the audit tab? Audit tab. I can see chart. I can see Square. I can see an AI tag. I can't see an audit tag. I'll have a look after the stream, and I'll see if I can find it. And then I'll have a look. Holdings, bots, trade history, order history. Is there a way for me to... Let me go and have a look. I'm clicking on this. Let's see. Right. Okay. So I'm now looking at a different page. Share, good, price of the token, market stats, about Maple Finance Syrup, resources. I don't see that anywhere, but I'm more than happy to go to buy. So I'm on the buy page now to buy syrup, trade syrup. I don't see an audit tag. Maybe it is not visible to me. So I'm on the buy syrup page now. I just don't see anything. I've got the Ethereum address for it. I've got the base address for it. I don't see anything like that. Anyway, I'm going to have a look. I'll have a look after the stream. Price info audit. So I'm on price. And I don't see any of that. Anyway, I will have a look. I will have a look. And I'll make a post about it. Now then, so we've got Tariq. We've got Leo. I've got one more question to answer, which I am going to pick. What are the factors driving the price of Syrup Coin, and how does it compare to other DeFi tokens? From Muzamil. They are the token. Sorry, they are the questions that I've got. Now then, very simply put, the majority of crypto assets at this moment in time are driven by Bitcoin. And we can say what we want about that. The fact comes down to the number one factor driving every token in this industry right now is Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance is 60%. Bitcoin fell 50% from 126 to 63,000. Everything else fell with it. Everybody sells. Just give me 1 second. I don't know why he's rung the doorbell. Every time Bitcoin falls, everything else falls with it. That is the number one factor driving the price of Syrup token. Now, it's going to take a Herculean effort for any token to move outside of Bitcoin. So look at what Hype is doing. They are moving outside of Bitcoin right now. We can go back in the course of the last 2 years and we can say Toncoin moved. Sui moved outside of the price of Bitcoin, but they did it for a certain period of time. Monero and Dash did the same thing when we had that narrative of the privacy coins going up. So for me, the number one answer to your token is Bitcoin and the market cycle. Number two, how does it compare? And Tau, yes, absolutely, and Tau. And just give me 1 second. I can hear the doorbell ringing, and I don't know who it is. And the number two reason, how does it compare to other DeFi tokens? The ones you could compare it to would be maybe Morpho, maybe Pendle, maybe Ondo. They're all moving in sync. They're all moving in sync right now. I don't believe at this stage of the market anything is going to structurally change from the relief rally ending, Bitcoin coming down, and everything else coming down. So when you look at the chart that I showed you before, the reason we're taking profits is we think that everything is going to come down. And I don't care who you are, we're going to be looking to buy Hype at $22 to $24. It's now at what, 38. So is that likely to happen? Maybe, maybe not. Syrup, I think 18 to 20 cents is a really good price to buy syrup at when we have the market correction. But I also think we could go up towards 30, 35, 40 cents. So I'm going to buy at those sell at those prices and buy at the low prices. So they're the three questions. Now, listen, we've overrun. It's 10 past. I'm really sorry for overrunning. What I'm going to do, so Leo has won. Just a reminder, Muzamil has won, and Tariq has won. I need your Binance IDs in chat. If you drop your Binance ID in chat, Bitcoin Cash did the same thing as well. If you drop your Binance ID in chat, what I'm going to do is send the Syrup tokens now. I'm going to send you some Syrup tokens, and thank you for watching. So I do this every 2 weeks. I'm going to be back in 2 weeks' time doing the same thing, but with an update from the next 2 weeks' worth of Maple Finance. If you've enjoyed this stream, follow us on Binance Square. We now have a Binance Square chat room. Follow us on YouTube if you don't. That would be amazing. And I will see you. I am streaming on Monday and Tuesday next week. So I will see you next week. Until then, have a wonderful day. And for the other 6 or 7 people who ask questions, I'm sorry, but I couldn't give you $5 each because I just don't have that amount of syrup on Binance. So 3 people have won syrup. 6 people haven't won syrup. I do apologize. There is Tariq's number as well. Absolutely fantastic. So let me just make a note of these. There's Musa. Now, I think Leo has me on Telegram. So just drop me a message. All right, I've got your ID, Tariq. So I'm going to go and pay them in about 5 minutes. I should have a coffee appearing from somewhere soon, which is nice. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Mags. Thank you, Tariq. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Alicia. Alicia, if you can send me that thing, I'm going to go and check it out for you. And maybe you can ask me a question next time, because you didn't ask me a question. If you'd have asked me a question, I would have put you into the quiz. I'm going to put it on the screen next time, I think. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a safe weekend. Thank you, Danny and Mags, and stay safe, Tariq. Stay safe, and I will see you all on Monday.